Black. The sound of a diesel engine breaks the silence. Air brakes hiss. Hydraulics slowly lower a transport trailer. No music. Just steel. Just machinery. A calm voice. "Have you worked on one before?" The trailer lowers another few inches. A black Porsche GT3 slowly appears. Every mechanic in the neighboring shops has stopped what they're doing. Even the grinder next door goes silent. The owner stands beside the Porsche, one hand in his pocket, the key in the other. He doesn't look nervous. He doesn't look impatient. He simply wants the truth. "Have you worked on one before?" I stare at the car. My mouth opens, but nothing comes out. The owner notices. "If you haven't, tell me now." Ben looks at me. The customers waiting outside look at me. The entire garage is silent. I knew exactly what the right answer was. I just couldn't make myself say it. Cut to black. 1 year earlier. The garage felt bigger after I sold the Sylvia.
Not because it actually was, because something important was missing. Every morning started the same way. Unlock the door, switch on the lights, start the compressor, make coffee. And before I did anything else, I looked toward the empty parking space. It was automatic, every single day. For one stupid second, I still expected to see the Sylvia waiting there. Old habits don't disappear just because the car does. I looked away. The coffee machine clicked behind me. A few unpaid invoices sat on the corner of my desk. Rent, electricity, parts supplier. Business wasn't failing, but it definitely wasn't winning. The compressor kicked on with a loud buzz. I grabbed a rag and started cleaning yesterday's tools. Anything to avoid looking at those bills again. 3 slow knocks echoed through the garage. I looked up. An old Toyota Supra rolled into the driveway. Its engine struggled to idle. It coughed twice, then stalled. The driver stayed inside for a moment before climbing out. He looked exhausted. Not physically, emotionally. He carried a thick stack of repair invoices held together with a rubber band. Without saying a word, he placed them on my workbench. Fuel pump, ignition coils, ECU, crank sensor, another ECU. Different shops, different mechanics, different handwriting. Same result. It still doesn't run? He let out a quiet laugh. Depends on the day. I walked around the Supra slowly. Fresh bolts beside rusty ones, new clamps beside old hoses. Half the connectors had obviously been unplugged more than once. Too many people had tried to solve this car by replacing parts. Nobody had actually diagnosed it. "You've been chasing this for a while." "Almost a year." He rested his hand on the roof. "My brother bought it. We planned to rebuild it together." He smiled for the first time. It lasted less than a second. "He got sick." Another pause. By the time I was ready to work on the car, he wasn't here anymore. The garage suddenly felt quieter. If I can't save this car, I lose the last thing we started together. I looked back under the hood. The truth? I had absolutely no idea where to begin. The owner reached into his pocket. The garage door rolled shut. The outside world disappeared. Now it was just me and the Supra. For a long moment, I didn't move. One hand rested on the roof. The other still held the key. I took a slow breath. "All right, let's see who you really are." I rolled my toolbox beside the car, pulled the work light closer. The engine bay slowly came to life beneath the white light. At first glance, nothing looked wrong. That bothered me. Broken cars usually leave evidence. Loose wires, burnt connectors, oil where it shouldn't be. Something. This one looked almost untouched. Almost perfect. I started with the basics.
Battery voltage, grounds, fuses. Everything checked out. I turned the key. The engine cranked, almost fired, then died. I tried again, exactly the same. No warning lights, no obvious faults, just another dead engine. The repair invoices were still lying on the workbench. I picked them up one by one. Fuel pump, replaced. Ignition coils, replaced. ECU, replaced. Crank sensor, replaced. Different shops, different handwriting, different ideas. Nobody had diagnosed the problem. They had simply replaced parts until they ran out of guesses. I looked back under the hood. Fresh ignition coils beside aging wiring. New connectors clipped into old harnesses. Different hose clamps. Fresh bolts beside rusty ones. The engine looked like 3 different mechanics had each tried to tell it a different story. I opened my notebook. On the first page, I wrote 4 words. Start over. Assume nothing. Every previous repair, forgotten. Every previous opinion, ignored. If this car was going to tell me the truth, I'd have to let it speak for itself. One connector at a time. One sensor at a time. One circuit at a time. Hours passed. Daylight slowly faded. The garage grew darker until the work light became the only light in the room. Piece by piece, everything I tested worked exactly as it should, which made even less sense. I swept my flashlight across the wiring harness one more time, then stopped. A connector hidden beneath the intake, almost invisible. One terminal sat just a little deeper than the others, so little that most people would never notice it. I reached toward it, then froze. If I was finally looking at the real problem, one careless move could destroy the only clue I had. Fade to black. The Porsche sat on lift 2, not because it was the newest lift, because I had cleaned it twice before the owner arrived. Ben walked around the car without touching it. You've never worked on one. It wasn't a question. I kept unpacking my tools. I know. You told him you had. I know. Ben waited. So what now? I looked at the Porsche. I learned fast. Ben didn't answer. He simply nodded once and walked away. That bothered me more than if he'd argued. The owner wasn't in a hurry. I'll be out of town for a week. If you need anything, call me. He handed me the service records. Every maintenance visit, every receipt, every inspection. Everything was organized. The car deserved someone who actually knew what they were doing. When the garage door closed behind him, I finally admitted it, quietly, to myself. I have no idea where to start. That night, the lights stayed on long after every other shop closed. Factory manuals covered the workbench, torque specifications, oil flow diagrams, cooling passages, timing procedures. Ben came back with 2 burgers. You've been here 12 hours. I know. You've read the same page 6 times.
I know. He pushed one burger toward me. You don't have to prove anything. I already started. That's exactly why you don't. Silence. I looked at the Porsche again. If I call him now, he'll take the car. Maybe. He'll never come back. Ben leaned against the toolbox. And if you don't call? I didn't answer, because I already knew. The first inspection found nothing. Compression was perfect. No leaks, no fault codes. Oil pressure looked normal. Everything pointed toward a minor mechanical noise somewhere in the valve train. Simple. At least that's what I wanted to believe. 3 days passed. The Porsche became my entire world. Morning, measurements. Afternoon, research. Night, manuals. I stopped answering messages, stopped eating on time, stopped going home before midnight. Every morning, Ben arrived to find me exactly where he'd left me. One evening, he tossed my apartment keys onto the workbench. "You forgot these." "I guess I did."
You forgot yesterday.
I stared at the keys. I honestly couldn't remember driving home. Eventually, I found something. A worn timing component, barely outside specification, enough to explain the intermittent ticking, not enough to be obvious. I smiled for the first time in days. "There you are." Ben looked over my shoulder. "You sure?" I hesitated, only for a second. Yeah. It wasn't confidence, it was relief, and those aren't the same thing. The new parts arrived the next morning. I laid every bolt on a clean towel, every washer in order, every tool exactly where I wanted it. No distractions, no shortcuts, no mistakes. Or at least, that's what I believed. I picked up the first wrench, took one deep breath, and began taking apart the most expensive engine I had ever touched. The engine came apart slower than I expected. Every bolt had a torque value, every connector had a lock, every cover hid another layer. Nothing about this car wanted to be rushed. For 2 days. The garage disappeared. Customers became background noise. Phones kept ringing. Ben handled everything. "You've got another pickup. Tell him next week. Oil change? Next week. The Subaru guy came back. Next week." Eventually, he stopped asking. He simply hung a small sign on the office door. "No walk-ins today." Piece by piece, the Porsche became 1,000 separate parts. I checked every measurement twice, then a third time. Factory manual open, torque wrench reset after every sequence, paint marks on every completed fastener. No shortcuts, not one. Late that evening, Ben walked over with 2 coffees. "You've done everything right." "I think so." "You don't sound convinced." I looked at the engine. "I've never been this careful." Ben smiled. "Maybe that's why it'll work." 3 days later, the engine was whole again. Fresh fluids, fresh seals, fresh timing components. Every connector locked, every bolt marked. I turned the key to on. Fuel pump. Prime. No warnings. I looked at Ben. "You ready?" He nodded. I turned the key. The flat 6 came to life instantly. Smooth. Quiet. The ticking. Gone. Neither of us celebrated. We listened. 5 seconds. 10. 30. 1 minute. Oil pressure perfect. Coolant climbing normally. No leaks. No smoke. Ben finally exhaled. "I think you did it." For the first time in nearly a week, I believed him. The owner returned the next morning. I handed in the keys. He smiled before even starting the car. "I had a feeling." The Porsche fired instantly. He listened, then looked at me. "Sounds better than when I bought it." I laughed, mostly because I hadn't laughed in days. He paid the invoice without reading it, then shook my hand. "I'll recommend this place." As the Porsche disappeared down the street, Ben leaned against the garage door. "You got away with it." I looked at the empty driveway. "No. I earned it." Ben didn't answer. He simply looked away. An hour later, the phone rang. Unknown number. I answered. Silence. Then, "Hey." It was the Porsche owner. His voice was different now, calm. Too calm. "I think you should come." My stomach tightened. "What's wrong?" Another pause. It stopped. The Porsche sat on the shoulder of a quiet highway, hazard lights blinking. A dark stain stretched beneath the rear bumper. The owner stood beside the car. He didn't look angry. He looked confused. I wasn't pushing it. I was doing 70.
It made one noise, then shut off. I opened the engine cover. Oil everywhere. Fresh oil, still dripping. Ben walked up beside me. Neither of us spoke. I saw it almost immediately. One fastener, missing. Not broken, missing. The world around me went completely silent. Every torque check, every paint mark, every page of the manual, every sleepless night.
Every promise I'd made to myself collapsed into one impossible realization. I knew that bolt. I remembered tightening every one around it, except that one. My hands slowly dropped to my sides. Behind me, the owner asked the question I had been dreading since the day he arrived. What happened? I opened my mouth, and for the second time, I knew exactly what the right answer was. I couldn't answer. Not because I didn't know, because I did. The highway faded into silence. Cars continued passing. People stared for a second, then disappeared. The owner was still waiting. What happened? I looked at the engine one more time, hoping, praying that I'd find another explanation. A broken part, a factory defect, anything. There wasn't one. I took one slow breath, then another. Finally, I made a mistake. The words barely came out. The owner frowned. What kind of mistake? I swallowed. When I reassembled the engine, I missed a fastener. Silence. Ben looked at me. He already knew. The owner didn't speak. He simply stared at the engine, then back at me. So?
This happened because of you.
Yes. He closed his eyes, not in anger, in disbelief. After a long pause, he quietly asked, You told me you'd worked on these before. I couldn't look at him anymore. I lied. Those two words hurt more than anything else I'd said that day. The owner nodded once, very slowly. I trusted you. I know. You looked me in the eyes and lied. I know. He let out a quiet laugh, not because anything was funny, because he couldn't believe it. You know what the worst part is? I stayed silent. If you had told me the truth, I probably would have still left you the car. That sentence hit harder than the engine failure ever could, because I believed him. He wasn't angry that I lacked experience. He was angry that I took away his choice. The tow truck arrived. Neither of us spoke while the Porsche was loaded. When the driver finished securing the straps, the owner signed the paperwork. Then he handed me the repair invoice from the towing company. You don't owe me this. He paused. You owe me the truth. He got into the truck. The Porsche disappeared down the road. I stood there until the flashing lights vanished over the hill. Ben finally walked over. You okay? No. He nodded. I didn't think so. Neither of us moved for a long time. For the first time since selling the Sylvia, the garage didn't feel empty. It felt heavy. Not because a car was gone, because the person I thought I'd become was gone too. Monday morning, the garage was open, but no one came. At first, I told myself it was coincidence. Rainy day, end of the month, people were busy. By noon, only one customer had stopped by. He looked through the open garage door, recognized me, then quietly got back into his car and drove away. Ben saw it too. Neither of us said anything. Tuesday wasn't much better. The phone barely rang. The waiting list we'd spent a year building started disappearing. One cancellation, then another, then 5 more. I found another shop. Sorry. Maybe next time. There wouldn't be a next time. Word travels fast.
especially when expensive cars are involved. Wednesday afternoon, a delivery truck dropped off a wooden crate. No return address. Inside, every damaged engine component had been carefully packed. The cracked timing cover, the broken chain guides, the scored camshaft, the bent valves. At the very bottom, a single note. No anger, no insults, just one sentence. I thought you should see what a lie looks like. I sat there for a long time, looking at those parts. Not because they were expensive, because every single one of them existed. Because I wanted to protect my pride. That evening, I took the turbo keychain off my toolbox, the one the Supra owner had given me. I turned it over in my hand, then placed it inside the office drawer. I didn't feel like I'd earned it anymore. The next morning, Ben arrived early. He noticed the empty hook immediately. "You took it down?" I nodded. I don't deserve to look at it. Ben picked it up from the drawer, held it for a moment, then put it back on the hook. "No. You don't deserve to hide from it." I looked at him. "You remember why he gave you this?" I stayed quiet. "It wasn't because you fixed a Supra. It was because you told the truth." I looked away. I didn't this time. "No. You didn't." Another long silence. Then Ben said something I never forgot. "One lie destroyed your reputation. But it doesn't get to decide who you are next." That night, I sat alone in the office. The lights were off. Only the desk lamp was on. I opened the invoice for the Porsche, then another estimate, then another. Engine replacement.
Machine work, labor, transportation. The number at the bottom was enough to bankrupt the garage. I stared at it for a long time, then reached for my phone. My thumb hovered over the owner's name. I could ask for time, negotiate, find excuses. Instead, I pressed call. He answered after 3 rings. "Hello?" I closed my eyes. "I've been thinking about what happened." Silence. "I'm paying for all of it." Another pause. "Everything. The engine, the transport, the labor. Everything. You don't owe me that." "I do. You already admitted the truth." "No. I admitted it after I had no choice." The owner didn't interrupt. "I should have told you before I ever touched your car." A long silence followed. Finally, he asked, "Why are you calling?" I looked around the empty garage, because for the first time in weeks, I knew the answer before I spoke. Because I'm done lying. Fade out. The garage stayed quiet, not for days, for months. Every morning, I unlocked the door, turned on the lights, started the compressor, made coffee, just like always. The difference was, I stopped pretending everything was fine. When customers called, I asked one question before anything else. "What car is it?" If I knew it, I booked it. If I didn't, I told them the truth. I've never worked on one. Sometimes they thanked me, then called another shop. Sometimes they stayed. Not because I was the most experienced, because they knew exactly what they were getting. Slowly, the waiting list returned. Not as long as before, not yet. But it was real. One honest customer at a time. One afternoon, a young mechanic walked into the garage. He looked nervous. "I just opened my own shop." I smiled. "Congratulations." He scratched the back of his neck. "I've got an Audi RS6. I've never worked on one." He hesitated. "What would you do?" A year earlier, I already knew what my answer would have been. Now, I didn't even have to think. "I'd call someone who has." He looked embarrassed. "So you'd turn the job away?" "No.
I'd ask for help. His shoulders relaxed. I thought admitting that made you look weak. I smiled. It used to. As he left, Ben looked over from the workbench. You know, you finally sound like yourself again. For the first time in a long time, I believed him.